leaked out, but that's when he became a public figure. We discovered in this case that it looks like Ira Kleiman, in concert with a couple of employees at Craig's companies in the country of Australia, as well as working with the Australian tax office, seemed to have basically colluded to out Craig Satoshi Nakamoto to put public pressure in order to actually build up precedent for this lawsuit. So it's a weird one.
Let's talk about the details of this lawsuit. So, Kleiman versus Wright, it was ruled in favor of Wright. What exactly did he win? Let's be specific here.
So he was being sued for, depending on how you measure it, somewhere between $300 and $600 billion worth of intellectual property value, bitcoins, and all, and punitive damages and whatever else. Ultimately, Ira was saying that the intellectual property that helped create Bitcoin, helped create Bitcoin mining software, and then ultimately made it possible to mine Bitcoin, was created at least 50% by Gabe. But in the trial, we had nothing but circumstantial evidence of that, and ultimately the burden of proof was not met according to the jury, and the jury thought that it was very clear that while Craig had the ability, the credentials, the time, and evidence of Craig working on these things, there was just no evidence of them working on it together until a very late stage. The only evidence was essentially, hey Dave, this is basically ready to go. I could really use you to edit this white paper. Maybe help me bootstrap it. Like, hey, maybe you can help mine, but not mine in a partnership. It's like, hey man, put up a laptop, mine it, we need nodes, and you get paid to mine. So it seems very much like good friends who did work together, sort of, but they were definitely not a legal business partnership. And that's how the jury in Miami found it.
Well, skeptics of Dr. Wright would say that, the trial proved that, well, I guess the outcome of the trial proved that Kleiman did not, in fact, work with, well, at least there wasn't enough substantial evidence to prove that Kleiman worked with Wright. But it doesn't prove that Wright worked on this alone, right?
That is a quick say, absolutely. But the middle of this trial, and I was at every single day of the trial. There was 15 days of trial. There was 7 days of deliberation after. There were a couple of holidays spotted in there. It was a good 75 hours or so of watching evidence and testimony. And about 4 or 5 days into the trial, I started to say publicly, man, if Craig is not Satoshi Nakamoto, he's been pretending to be since like 2006 or 7. And has done almost nothing else since. It's frankly, I don't know when he would have had time to do anything else if he was not Satoshi. Like, the whole thing just really doesn't make any sense. And ultimately, the attorneys on both sides and all of the research that went into this, I mean, Ira Kleiman was able to procure funding in order to get this litigation. So there's been a very serious group of people researching this case before it went to litigation, into litigation. There was multiple rounds of settlement discussions that went in before this actually went to trial. And over the course of about three and a half years before this went to trial, everyone that looked at it said, absolutely, it is worth suing for Satoshi's fortune. So either everyone's a fool, or there's at least as much evidence as is needed to say, hey man, we're going to spend $50 million to try to get this multi-billion-dollar fortune.
What's interesting to me is that nobody else that I know of has come forward to challenge Craig on his ownership.
No serious candidates. There's a goofball here and there that pops up, but their stories fall apart very quickly. And any real analysis of any other plausible Satoshi candidate falls apart with about 30 to 60 minutes of real research and looking at time and place and their basic skill set or the way that they communicate. Some of the things that make sense about Craig being Satoshi are the fact that he is a Queen's English speaker. He's Australian, so he speaks with the tongue of the Commonwealth, which is something that was very notable about Satoshi. Saying looks like bloody as an adjective is something that you would get from an Aussie or a British person, and that's how Craig speaks.
But there's also pretending to be a British person.
Perhaps. But there's also things like the background in like math, economics, statistics, and all of these different things. Like Bitcoin is a polymath's invention, and Craig is one of the very few people on Earth that has both the cryptographic experience, but also the economic experience to have come up with even the idea with any real authority.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, and I'm not the only one with this question, is if Craig Wright were the original, or if he was the original founder of Bitcoin, if he is actually Satoshi, would he have the keys to the original coins that he mined? Like, what does he need to go through a trial to prove that he is the founder? He could just access those coins, right?
To be fair, he didn't want this trial. He was sued. So Craig would have very much liked for this trial to not happen, I'm sure.
I understand, yeah.
He's become a more litigious character over time as people continue to say that he's a fraud. I mean, he just keeps saying, okay, well, sue me, I guess. And, but yes, in the most simple sense, right, if you're Satoshi, sign. Or move coins. They're your coins, right? But one of the things that came up in the trial is the fact that they're not Craig as the person. They are Craig as an officer of various business entities. And some of these coins are also held, or quite a bit of the coins are held in trusts. And these trusts specifically are set up so that Craig is not a trustee. And a lot of this is for protection reasons and just legal, taxation and stuff like that. So he's said from the beginning, hey, I didn't ask to be outed. I was doxxed. I don't really owe the world anything. I gave the world Bitcoin, and if you don't want to believe me, I don't care. I'm not asking for anything. And so he's, particular about his privacy. I understand that can come across as convenient, but ultimately, since 2017, when these things when this case started, is roughly when Craig started to become a contentious public figure. And so when people say, hey, move coins, he's had to say, they're under litigation. Like, I can't move assets under litigation. I'm going to get nailed for conversion or whatever else in this trial. So really, he's only had these coins unencumbered since Monday. So
that's he was hacked, you mentioned to me, offline?
He was hacked at least twice that we're aware of. So in 2014, among the ATO investigation, it looks like employees of his company basically worked or colluded with the Australian Tax Authority, and his servers had to be rebuilt from scratch. So that was a major point where there was document loss, and all the metadata basically is updated to 2014, making it very difficult to prove time and place of files that happened before that point. And then he was also hacked again, I believe it was early 2020. He became aware of a very sophisticated attack on his private server that may or may not have destroyed his private keys, but at the very least they were compromised, and that was the major issue for him. He actually has not made it clear whether the keys were destroyed or if they're just compromised or whatever. But he's been in court to try to figure out, hey, what is the legal ramification? How do I protect myself in this precedent-setting situation?
Just sidestepping for a minute, maybe if you know the details, can you explain the details of how his keys were hacked? Because a lot of people watching the show who are crypto investors might just wonder, okay, what can I do to prevent that from happening to me?
So I'm actually a cybersecurity expert myself, or at least I was a professional myself. So I want to say that everyone is hackable. It's about cost-benefit analysis. So if you're very rich, then it makes sense for hackers to spend money trying to hack you nonstop. The best advice is look and keep your stuff offline. For Craig, what it looks like happened, there was some kind of listening device that was put on his home network. So he had somebody maybe come in as a contractor, maybe it was a staff member in one of his homes or something, but somebody connected a listening device to his home network that was listening for passwords, and ultimately at some point a password was put on the network, it was key logged, and it was sent up to some malicious actor. So that's a very sophisticated attack. It would have required physical entry to his home or access to his network. So it could have been somebody pretending to be from his ISP, or we don't really know, but it was discovered.
Well, fast forward to today, does Craig now have the right and the ability to move Satoshi coins?
It would seem so. I don't know how long the appeals process, like how long the plaintiffs have the opportunity to appeal the decision from the court case, but it hasn't happened yet, and as I understand it, it's very customary to make that announcement very quickly upon judgment.
these coins, are they currently being held in custody somewhere?
No, they are held, as far as we know, they are the property of Satoshi Nakamoto. According to Craig, they're held in custody of this trust and or various business entities, but
But somebody has those keys, right?
presumably.
Presumably.
We believe they do. I believe they do. People argue that they do not. People would say that either they're destroyed, they've been damaged and they cannot move, or people have said that
Been damaged.
Craig never had them at all. Well, so a digital file, it's like a corrupted file, for
Okay.
example, would mean that your password is gone.
Yeah, well, I would get to work on those keys. Right, owes 110